John Pinkerton was a Scottish antiquarian, cartographer, author, numismatist, historian, and early advocate of Germanic racial supremacy theory. He was born in Edinburgh, as one of three sons to James Pinkerton. He lived in the neighbourhood of that city for some of his earliest childhood years, but later moved to Lanark. His studious youth brought him extensive knowledge of the classics, and it is known that in his childhood years he enjoyed translating Roman authors such as Livy. He moved on to Edinburgh University, and after graduating, remained in the city to take up an apprenticeship in law. However, his scholarly and literary inclinations led him to abandon the legal profession. It had been during his brief legal career, though, that he had begun writing, his elegy on Craigmillar Castle being first published in 1776. London on publications. In 1781, John moved to London, where his full career as a writer began in earnest, publishing in the same year a volume of rhymes of no great merit, and Scottish tragic ballads. These were followed in 1782 by two dithyrambic odes on enthusiasm and laughter, and by a series of tales in verse. Under the title of Select Scottish Ballads, he reprinted in 1783 his tragic ballads, with a supplement comprising ballads of the comic kind. Joseph Ritson pointed out in 1784 that the so-called ancient ballads were some of them of modern date, and Pinkerton admitted that he was the author of the second part of Hardicanute and part author of some others. He published an essay on medals in 1784 and in 1785, under the pseudonym of Robert Herrin, his bold but eccentric letters of literature depreciating the classical authors of Greece and Rome. In 1786 he edited ancient Scottish poems from the manuscript collections of Sir Richard Maitland of Leathington. It was succeeded in 1787 by a compilation, under the new pseudonym of H. Bennett, entitled The Treasury of Wit, and by his first important historical work, the dissertation on the origin and progress of the Scythians or Goths, to which Gibbon acknowledged himself indebted. His edition of Barber's Bruce and a Medalic History of England to the Revolution appeared in 1790, a collection of Scottish poems reprinted from scarce editions in 1792, and a series of biographical sketches, the Iconographia Scotica, in the years 1795 to 1797. In 1797 he published a history of Scotland from the accession of the House of Stuart to that of Mary, containing much valuable material. A new biographical collection, The Gallery of Eminent Persons of Scotland, was succeeded after a short interval by a modern geography digested on a new plan. Celtic Gothic Furore. Pinkerton next collected and printed in 1789 certain Vitae Sanctorum Scotiae, and, a little later, published his Inquiry into the History of Scotland preceding the reign of Malcolm III. His assertion that the Celts were incapable of assimilating the highest forms of civilization excited violent disgust, but the Inquiry was twice reprinted, in 1794 and 1814, and is still of value for the documents embodied in it. Pinkerton very much wished to purge his country's history of all Celtic elements. In this aim, through two works, the dissertation on the origins and progress of the Scythians or Goths and the Inquiry into the History of Scotland preceding the reign of Malcolm III, he developed the theory that the Picts were in fact of the race of ancient Goths, that the Scots language was a pure descendant of the Picto-Gothic language, and, moreover, that the Gaels, or Highlanders, were a degenerate impostor race. In an effort to advance his theories, Pinkerton turned to comparing Celtic and Germanic philology. He wanted to show that Scotland's Celtic place names were not Celtic at all, many of these attempts being discredited by modern scholars. Pinkerton thought, for instance, that Aber came from the German Uber rather than from the Celtic for confluence of a river, and likewise, that the Gaelic word Inver was a borrowing from Danish. To this end he set his energy to collecting and creating older Anglo-Scottish literature. This was all the more important as far as his agenda was concerned because of the Celtmania produced by the Ossian poems of James Macpherson. Many such works had been invented by Pinkerton. His ancient Anglo-Scottish tale of Hardignute had in fact only been composed in 1719 by Lady Wardlaw of Partography. Pinkerton subsequently invented a sequel to this epic, but after he was exposed by Joseph Ritson, he admitted to the forgery. Pinkerton's correspondence with fellow academics is characterized by verbal abuse. Hugh Trevor Roper, one modern historian inclined to sympathize with at least the spirit of his views, called him eccentric. Quote, "Other historians have hinted at mild insanity." Despite this, Pinkerton is still an important figure in the history of British antiquarianism. Cartography. Pinkerton was a celebrated master of the Edinburgh School of Cartography, which lasted from roughly 1800 to 1830. Pinkerton, along with John Thomson and Amp Co. and John Carey, redefined cartography by exchanging the elaborate cartouches and fantastical beasts used in the 18th century for more accurate detail. Pinkerton's main work was the Pinkerton's Modern Atlas, published from 1808 through 1815 with an American version by Dobson and Amp Co. In 1818. Pinkerton maps are today greatly valued for their quality, size, coloration, and detail. Later life. About 1818 he left London for Paris, where he made his headquarters until his death on the 10th of March 1826. He spent his later years impoverished. His remaining publications were the Recollections of Paris in the years 1802–5, a very useful general collection of voyages and travels, a new, modern atlas, and his Petrology. Reading. Ferguson, William, The Identity of the Scottish Nation, An Historic Quest, pp. 250–273. Patrick O'Flaherty, Scotland's Pariah, The Life and Work of John Pinkerton, 1758–1826, Toronto, Univ. of Toronto Press, 2015, ISBN 978-1-4426-4928-6. Cooper, Sarah. Pinkerton, John. Oxford Dictionary of National Biography. Oxford University Press. DOI 10.1093, Ref. ODNB 22301.